Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Simple Spoken English. I'm Jack. Today, I want to talk about a problem that millions of English learners face every day. A problem that grammar books don't solve. A problem that vocabulary lists don't solve. A problem that English courses rarely talk about. The problem is this. I understand English, but I can't speak it. Maybe you know this feeling. You watch English videos. You understand many words. You know grammar. You know hundreds, maybe thousands of vocabulary words. But when someone asks you a simple question in English, your mind becomes blank. Suddenly, all your English disappears. If this has happened to you, then today's story is for you. Because this is the story of Daniel, a man who learned a surprising secret, a secret that helped him start speaking English, even though he had nobody to practice with. Daniel was 28 years old. He lived in a small city. Every day he studied English. He watched YouTube videos, listened to podcasts, read articles, learned new vocabulary, and honestly, his English wasn't bad. When he watched English videos, he understood most of them. When he read English books, he understood many pages. But there was one huge problem. He couldn't speak. Not because he didn't know English, because he never used it. And the reason was simple. He had nobody to practice with. No English-speaking friends, no language partner, no English club, no native speakers nearby, nothing. Every night Daniel told himself, if I had someone to practice with, I would improve so fast. If I had an English-speaking friend, I would become fluent. If I had more opportunities, I could finally speak. Months passed, then years passed. But nothing changed, because Daniel was always waiting for the perfect speaking partner, waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for the perfect moment. One evening, after work, Daniel sat in his room watching another English lesson. The teacher said something simple, something that changed everything. The teacher said, "You don't need another person to start speaking English." Daniel laughed. "Of course I do. Speaking requires two people." But the teacher continued, "You already talk all day, inside your own head." Daniel stopped the video. For a moment, he thought about it, and suddenly, he realized something. The teacher was right. Every day, he talked to himself. When he woke up, when he worked, when he walked, when he ate. His mind was always speaking. The next morning, Daniel woke up. Normally, his first thought was, "I don't want to get up." But this time he tried something different. He said it in English. "I don't want to get up." Then he smiled. That was easy. A few minutes later, he looked outside. It's going to rain today. Again, English. Then, while brushing his teeth, he thought, I need to buy toothpaste. English again. For the first time, Daniel realized something incredible. He didn't need to wait for another person. He could start speaking English immediately, inside his own mind. At first it felt strange, very strange. Sometimes he even laughed at himself. But he continued. While making breakfast, he described what he was doing. I'm making coffee. The coffee smells good. I need more sugar. While walking to work, he described people. The man is wearing a blue jacket. That woman is talking on her phone. The traffic is heavy today. Simple sentences. Nothing complicated. But something interesting started happening. His brain was becoming faster. English words appeared more quickly, and for the first time, English felt less like a school subject and more like a language. Then one day, Daniel imagined a conversation in a coffee shop. He imagined the worker asking, "Hello, what can I get for you?" And he answered, "Can I have a cappuccino, please?" The worker asked, "Would you like sugar?" Daniel answered, "Just one packet, please." For 10 minutes, he continued the conversation inside his head. And surprisingly, it felt real. Very real. That night, Daniel learned an important lesson. Most people think speaking starts with the mouth, but speaking actually starts in the mind. Before you speak a sentence, you think a sentence. Before confidence appears in public, it appears in private. And Daniel had just discovered his own private practice room. His mind. But he had no idea how powerful this method would become. Because over the next few weeks, he would start practicing entire English conversations inside his head. Conversations at restaurants, at supermarkets, at bus stops, even job interviews. And those imaginary conversations would completely change his confidence. He knew vocabulary. He understood English videos. He could read English articles. But he had one frustrating problem. He couldn't speak confidently, not because he was lazy, not because he wasn't intelligent, but because he had nobody to practice with. Then one day, he discovered something powerful. He could practice English conversations inside his own head. And that simple discovery started changing everything. But what happened next surprised even Daniel. A few days after starting this new habit, Daniel noticed something interesting. His English felt more active. Before, English felt like information stored in his brain. Now, it felt like something he could actually use. And there is a big difference between knowing English and using English. Many learners know hundreds of words, but when it's time to speak, their brain freezes. Why? Because knowledge and communication are different skills. Imagine someone who watches swimming videos every day. They know all the techniques, they know all the rules, but if they never enter the water, can they really swim? Probably not. English is exactly the same. You must use it. One morning, Daniel was walking to work. Instead of listening to music, he started imagining a conversation. He pretended he was entering a coffee shop. The worker smiled and asked, "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Daniel answered inside his head, "Good morning. I'd like a large coffee, please." The worker asked, "Would you like anything to eat?" Daniel replied, "Yes, I'd like a cheese sandwich." The conversation continued. Simple, natural, easy. And something strange happened. The more he practiced, the less nervous he felt. Even though the conversations weren't real, a week later, Daniel tried another situation. The supermarket. He imagined himself looking for rice. He couldn't find it. So he created a conversation. "Excuse me, where can I find the rice?" The worker answered, "It's in aisle 7. Daniel replied, "Thank you very much." The worker smiled. "You're welcome." That was it. A very small conversation. But every conversation strengthened his confidence. Most learners make a mistake. They think speaking practice must be difficult, so they try discussing politics, business, science, economics, complicated subjects. But Daniel discovered something important. Real conversations are usually simple. Think about your daily life. Most conversations are about food, work, weather, shopping, directions, plans, family, simple topics. That's why simple practice works so well. Then Daniel learned another secret. He stopped practicing only his answers. Instead, he started playing both people in the conversation. This changed everything. Imagine you're checking into a hotel. Most learners only practice, "I have a reservation." But Daniel practiced the whole conversation. Receptionist: "Hello, how can I help you?" Daniel: "I have a reservation." Receptionist: "What name is the reservation under?" Daniel: "It's under Daniel Brown." Receptionist: "Can I see your passport, please?" Daniel: "Of course." Now he wasn't just practicing speaking. He was also preparing for listening. And that's exactly what real conversations require. As the days passed, Daniel started noticing another problem: perfectionism. Every time he created a conversation, he wanted perfect grammar, perfect vocabulary, perfect pronunciation. And this made speaking difficult. Then one day, he remembered something his teacher once said: "Communication is more important than perfection." Those words changed his thinking. Instead of asking, "Is this sentence perfect?" he started asking, "Can people understand me?" And suddenly speaking became much easier. For example, imagine someone asks, "Why were you late today?" A perfectionist learner might spend 20 seconds creating the perfect answer. Daniel learned to keep it simple. "I missed my bus." Or, "There was heavy traffic." Short, clear, natural. And most importantly, easy to say. A few weeks later, something amazing happened. Daniel started thinking in English automatically. Not all the time, but sometimes. While walking, English thoughts appeared naturally. While cooking, English thoughts appeared naturally. While shopping, English thoughts appeared naturally. For the first time, he wasn't translating every sentence. And this is where many learners finally begin improving quickly, because translation creates delay. Thinking directly in English creates fluency. One afternoon, Daniel decided to challenge himself. He imagined a job interview. This was much harder. He imagined the interviewer asking, "Can you tell me a little about yourself?" Daniel answered, "My name is Daniel. I work in customer service and I enjoy learning English." Then he imagined another question. "What are your strengths?" He answered again. Then another question. And another. For almost 20 minutes, he practiced. By the end, he felt surprisingly confident. Not because he had memorized answers, because he had trained his brain to respond. Then something unexpected happened. A few days later, Daniel was standing near a train station. A tourist approached him. The tourist looked confused, then asked, "Excuse me, can you help me?" Immediately, Daniel felt nervous. His heart started beating faster. This was a real conversation, not an imaginary one, not a practice conversation, a real person, standing in front of him, waiting for an answer. Just a few months earlier, Daniel would have panicked. But now, something was different, because his brain had already practiced hundreds of conversations. The question wasn't exactly the same, but it felt familiar. Very familiar. Daniel opened his mouth and started speaking, and what happened next completely changed his confidence forever. Daniel discovered a powerful secret. He started practicing English conversations inside his own head. Every day, at coffee shops, at supermarkets, at bus stops, at restaurants, even during imaginary job interviews. Little by little, his confidence grew. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A tourist approached him near a train station and asked, "Excuse me, can you help me?" A real conversation had finally arrived, and Daniel had no idea that this moment would change the way he thought about English forever. The tourist looked confused. He was holding a map, looking around nervously. Then he asked, "Can you tell me how to get to the city museum?" For a moment, Daniel felt the old fear return. His heart started beating faster. His mind became alert. The same feeling he had experienced hundreds of times before. But something was different now. This time, his brain didn't freeze, because his mind had already practiced similar situations many times. Not this exact conversation, but similar conversations, asking for directions, giving directions, helping strangers, explaining locations. His brain recognized the situation, and before he could overthink, he answered, "Yes." "It's about 10 minutes from here." The tourist smiled. Daniel continued, "Walk straight ahead. Then turn left at the traffic lights. You'll see the museum on your right." The tourist listened carefully, then asked another question. Daniel answered again, then another question, and another. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes, but when it ended, Daniel felt something incredible. Relief, excitement, pride. Not because his English was perfect. It wasn't. Not because he used advanced vocabulary. He didn't. But because he communicated successfully. And that is the real purpose of language. Communication. Many learners think fluency means speaking without mistakes. But that's not true. Let me tell you something important. Even native speakers make mistakes. Sometimes they forget words. Sometimes they change sentences halfway through speaking. Sometimes they pause. Sometimes they say, "Let me think." Or, "What was I trying to say?" Or, "You know what I mean." Perfect speaking doesn't exist. Successful communication does. And Daniel was finally beginning to understand this. That evening, he sat in his room thinking about what happened. The conversation was short, very short, but it felt important. Then he realized something. The tourist wasn't judging his grammar. The tourist wasn't checking his pronunciation. The tourist simply wanted help. and Daniel helped him. That's all. Suddenly, years of fear started disappearing because he understood a powerful truth. Most people care more about understanding you than judging you. After that day, Daniel became even more serious about practice, but he didn't spend 5 hours studying grammar. Instead, he continued having conversations inside his head, every day, consistently, because consistency beats intensity. 5 minutes every day is more powerful than 3 hours once a month. Soon Daniel added another habit. He started speaking aloud. At first quietly, then normally. For example, he imagined a conversation in his mind. Then he spoke it. Hello? How can I help you? I'd like to make an appointment. What day would you prefer? Friday afternoon, please. Simple conversations, repeated again and again. His brain was practicing, his mouth was practicing, and together they were becoming stronger. Then he started recording himself. The first recording was terrible. At least that's what he thought. When he listened back, he heard mistakes. Long pauses, strange pronunciation, missing words. At first he felt embarrassed. Then he remembered something. The purpose of practice is improvement, not perfection. So instead of criticizing himself, he became curious. He asked, "What can I improve?" That simple question changed everything. One day, while recording himself, he forgot an English word. Immediately, he became frustrated. Then he remembered another useful skill. Learning how to continue speaking when you forget a word.